In the quiet town of Bastrop, Texas, on the night of February 4th, 2015, a chilling discovery would change the lives of everyone who knew her. Samantha Dean, a 29-year-old pregnant woman, was found murdered in the vacant parking lot of a shopping center. But this wasn't just any murder. It was a mystery full of strange and disturbing details that would unravel a dark conspiracy. Samantha had been 26 weeks pregnant with her first child, a little girl she had named Malene. She had survived cancer, defying the odds, and was working as a victim services coordinator at the Kyle Police Department, where she was beloved by her colleagues in the community. But on that fateful night, she became the victim of a gruesome crime. The car in which she was found was a black Dodge Charger, registered to Samantha herself. It was parked near the back of the empty lot, and as a police officer patrolled the area, he noticed something disturbing. Samantha's body was partially inside the car, a severe head injury evident on her lifeless form. She had been shot 3 times in the head. But what made the scene even more bizarre was the fact that there were no shell casings around, and a vital part of the car's interior, the back seat, had been removed and placed outside the vehicle. It looked like something had been staged. To make matters stranger, inside the car were 2 cell phones, one Samantha's and the other belonging to someone else. Among the unsettling details, a grocery bag was found in the back seat. Inside, there was marijuana. At first glance, it seemed like a simple drug deal gone wrong. But as investigators took a closer look, they realized this didn't add up. The marijuana bag had no blood on it, suggesting it had been placed after the murder. Cash had also been left behind. As the investigation deepened, a chilling possibility emerged. Samantha wasn't just any victim. She worked with the police. She was a member of the victims' services team, a woman who dedicated her life to helping others. How could someone who dedicated herself to protecting the vulnerable end up a victim in such a cold and calculated manner? As the investigation into Samantha Dean's murder unfolded, authorities began to uncover more about the woman behind the tragedy. A woman who was not just a victim, but a fighter, a beloved daughter, and a dedicated professional. Samantha had always been a survivor. Diagnosed with sarcoma cancer at a young age, she fought her way through grueling chemotherapy treatments while still attending classes at the University of Texas. Despite her health struggles, Samantha never gave up on her dream of helping others. She earned a degree in liberal arts and public policy, but it was her deep-rooted desire to serve that led her to the Kyle Police Department. Samantha had recently learned she was pregnant with a little girl she lovingly named Malene, or Maddie for short. The news of her pregnancy had brought immense joy to Samantha and her family. She was particularly close to her younger sister Taylor, who eagerly awaited becoming an aunt. Samantha's friends and coworkers often spoke of her bright spirit, her unwavering strength, and her infectious smile. But amidst the devastation, one question loomed over the investigation. Who would want to harm a woman so loved by everyone around her? And what was the true motive behind her murder? The investigation soon turned its focus to Vontre Clark, the father of Samantha's unborn child. The two had been in a complicated, on-again, off-again relationship for years, though Vontre was in a committed relationship with another woman, Laura Tootin. Samantha had told Vontre about her pregnancy in early August, and while Vontre initially claimed their relationship wasn't serious, investigators soon learned that there was much more to the story. Vontre was interviewed by law enforcement shortly after Samantha's body was found. He claimed he was home with his family the night of her death, but surveillance footage showed he had been at the Austin Police Department that night. His story started to unravel when it became clear that his movements, phone records, and the timeline didn't add up. Most suspicious of all was the fact that Vontre had left his cell phone at home during his supposed absence. In addition to the discrepancies in his story, Vontre's phone records and surveillance footage put him in places he hadn't admitted to being. His interactions with Samantha, as well as the timeline of the events surrounding her murder, began to cast a shadow of doubt over his innocence. It was clear that Samantha's murder wasn't a random act. A conspiracy was beginning to take shape. Investigators learned that Vontre wasn't acting alone. His connections to a network of people, including individuals with criminal histories, would soon be uncovered. As the investigation into Samantha Dean's death deepened, the focus quickly shifted back to Vontre Clark. His behavior, inconsistencies in his statements, and the mounting evidence suggested that he wasn't just a grieving father. He might have been involved in something far darker. Vontre Clark, a seasoned police officer with the Austin Police Department, initially seemed cooperative during his questioning. He had known Samantha for years, and the two had shared a complicated relationship. When asked about the night of her death, Vontre denied any involvement and claimed that he had been at home with his family. However, investigators soon found several troubling discrepancies in his story. Surveillance footage captured Vontre leaving the police department that night, but it didn't show him at home, as he had claimed. His whereabouts during the critical hours leading up to Samantha's murder were becoming more questionable with each passing day. Perhaps most suspicious was the discovery that Vontre had left his cell phone at home. Investigators had learned that during the time he was supposedly at home with his family, his phone records didn't match his alibi. The timeline of his movements was rapidly falling apart, but the most crucial breakthrough came when investigators began focusing on the burner phones connected to the case. These phones had been used to communicate with Samantha on the night of her death. The key to understanding what happened to Samantha lay in those messages, and it became increasingly clear that Vontre had played a central role in what was now looking like an elaborate conspiracy. The burner phones used in the crime were traced back to a series of messages that had been exchanged with Samantha on the night she was killed. The messages were designed to lure her to a specific location, an empty shopping center in Bastrop, Texas. Vontre's involvement in the communication chain couldn't be ignored. While Vontre's story continued to unravel, investigators started connecting the dots between him and the other players in this dark drama. The burner phone's message trail led back to Freddie Smith, a man with a criminal history, and to others who were deeply involved in the plot to murder Samantha. Freddie Smith, a man with a violent past, became a key figure in the investigation. It was revealed that Freddie had been hired to murder Samantha, with Vontre's involvement in orchestrating the plan. The stage scene, the marijuana bag, and the missing seat in Samantha's car all pointed to a conspiracy far larger than just a random act of violence. Investigators now knew that Samantha's murder was a calculated and cold-blooded act. It wasn't just a tragic crime of passion, it was the result of a plan, one that involved betrayal, manipulation, and a betrayal of trust from someone who should have protected her. As the investigation into Samantha Dean's murder continued to unfold, the dark web of lies and betrayal began to unravel. It became clear that Samantha's death was not the result of a random act of violence, but rather a carefully orchestrated conspiracy involving multiple people. And at the center of it all was Vontre Clark. The breakthrough came when investigators connected the burner phones to a trail of messages that had been sent to Samantha in the hours leading up to her death. These messages, filled with false promises and lies, led her to the empty parking lot where her life would be violently taken. But it wasn't just Vontre sending those messages. He wasn't acting alone. Freddie Smith, a known criminal with a violent past, emerged as a key figure in the conspiracy. He had been hired to carry out the murder. It wasn't just a random act. It was coldly planned. Freddie had agreed to kill Samantha in exchange for money, and the plan was simple. Lure Samantha to the shopping center, shoot her, and make it look like a botched drug deal. Freddie was the one who pulled the trigger first. He shot Samantha twice in the head while she was sitting in her car. But the plot didn't end there. After Freddie fired his shots, he handed the gun to Vontre, who fired the final, fatal shot. Vontre had initially denied any involvement in Samantha's murder, but as the evidence mounted, his lies began to crumble. Freddie Smith, who had been in on the plan from the beginning, confessed the details of the crime. He described how Vontre had been complicit in every step of the murder, from arranging the meeting to executing the final, fatal shot. What made the conspiracy even more disturbing was the fact that Vontre had been desperate to cover his tracks. After the murder, he immediately attempted to establish an alibi. He drove straight to the Austin Police Department in an effort to create a timeline that would absolve him of any suspicion. But Vontre's efforts were in vain. The evidence didn't lie. The phone records, the surveillance footage, and Freddie's confession all pointed to one undeniable truth. Vontre Clark had not only arranged the murder, but had been an active participant in ending the life of the woman he claimed to love. Investigators also discovered text messages exchanged between Vontre and Freddie in the hours before the murder, giving clear instructions on where to meet and how to execute the plan. Freddie had even been sent to a gas station in Bastrop to ensure that everything went according to Vontre's instructions. They were working together to cover their tracks and stage the crime scene, making it look like a botched drug deal. The conspiracy was wider than just Vontre and Freddie. Aaron Williams, a friend of Freddie's, was brought into the fold when he helped them purchase the burner phones used to communicate. Aaron later cooperated with the authorities, giving critical information about the murder and the events leading up to it. Aaron's testimony was crucial in linking Vontre to the crime. He confirmed that Vontre had paid Freddie $5,000 to carry out the murder, and he even overheard Freddie admitting to the killing. Aaron's cooperation with investigators helped fill in the gaps of the conspiracy, and his willingness to testify played a pivotal role in bringing the truth to light. On February 8th, just days after Samantha's murder, law enforcement had enough evidence to issue a warrant for Vontre's arrest. His carefully crafted alibi had collapsed, and his involvement in Samantha's death was undeniable. He was arrested and charged with capital murder, but the journey for justice was far from over. The arrest of Vontre Clark was a significant step towards justice for Samantha Dean and her unborn daughter, but it was only the beginning of a long, painful journey for those who loved her. As the investigation progressed, the full extent of the conspiracy was revealed, leading to charges against others involved in Samantha's murder. Freddie Smith, the man who fired the fatal shots, was also arrested and charged in connection with the murder. His confession detailed how he was hired by Vontre Clark to carry out the brutal killing. But it wasn't just Freddie who played a role in this tragic plot. Aaron Williams, another key figure in the conspiracy, was eventually brought in for questioning. Though he initially tried to distance himself from the crime, his involvement in purchasing the burner phones used to communicate and his knowledge of the murder plan led him to cooperate with investigators. The case was growing more complicated, with Vontre's defense team arguing that he was not directly involved in the murder, but the prosecution had a mountain of evidence against him. Text messages, burner phones, and the testimony of Freddie and Aaron painted a clear picture of Vontre's role in orchestrating the murder. Throughout the trial, Samantha's family and friends were forced to relive the painful details of her death. It was clear from the start that Samantha was not just a statistic. She was a daughter, a friend, and a soon-to-be mother who had been robbed of her future in the most heartbreaking way possible. The trial was a tense and emotional experience for everyone involved, but the evidence against Vontre Clark was undeniable. The jury deliberated for several days, weighing the testimony of witnesses and the forensic evidence that tied him to the crime. In the end, Vontre Clark was found guilty of capital murder. The jury's decision brought a sense of relief to Samantha's family, though it would never bring her back. Her death, along with the loss of her unborn daughter, had left a void that could never be filled. At his sentencing, Samantha's family spoke of the pain they felt, knowing that Vontre had not only taken Samantha's life, but had also shattered the dreams of a bright, compassionate woman who had dedicated herself to helping others. Though the legal battle had been won, the emotional toll on Samantha's loved ones was far from over. They would never again get to share the moments they had dreamed of, birthdays, holidays, and the joy of watching Maddie grow up. Samantha's death was a loss that would be felt for the rest of their lives. Samantha Dean's story, though tragic, is one of resilience and strength. She fought through cancer, made a difference in the lives of others, and loved fiercely. She won't be remembered as just a victim. She will be remembered as a woman who lived with purpose, who had dreams, and who was stolen from her family far too soon. Her family, her friends, and her co-workers at the Kyle Police Department will continue to honor her memory, ensuring that she is never forgotten. Samantha's tragic end led to justice, but it also brought light to the dangers of betrayal, greed, and the manipulation of those closest to us.